Joining us now are Chase Musslewhite and Grant Wood, co-founders of Media for Texas, a nonprofit advocating and supporting the film, TV, and media production industry in Texas. Also, I might add, native Texans. Chase, Grant, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, yes. Thanks for having us.
Excited to be here.
Some of our viewers might not know that Texas actually already has a film incentive program in place. How is this new bill different?
Right, so this bill kind of breaks down the funding mechanism, whereas before you'd have a cash, or you still have a cash grant system, but there isn't necessarily a long-term component of the bill, of the current program. You have programs across the country where they have a timeline of 10 years or so. And that creates a lot of consistency and, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of consistency for producers and stability for producers wanting to film these programs across the globe. And in Texas, unfortunately, our program is allocated, or it's based off the 2-year appropriation cycle of the legislative process. So all the money that we have every 2 years has to go back to the chopping block, essentially.
Yeah, so basically, the real issue is that we have a 2-year program. Everyone else has at least a 10-year program. And if you have a TV show and you want to know where you're going to shoot seasons 2 through 5, you're not going to pick Texas because you don't even know if we have funding in years 3, 4, or 5. If you want to build a studio and pour $300 million into an infrastructure build, that's going to take longer than 2 years. You don't even know if we're going to have a program by the time you're finished building a studio.
How would y'all describe, or what would you say are the biggest benefits from this new incentive fund for Texans and the state of Texas?
I think that the long-term stability that Grant was referencing, now this program says Texas is here to stay and we're here to be competitive. I would say right now Texas is not high on the list when it comes to programs and on its level of like competition and compared to the other 37 states that have programs. We're the only short-term program. So for Texans, it's really the instability that hurts us the most, and we've seen tons of our crew, up to 70% of our crew base has left our state and moved to Georgia, moved to New Mexico, moved to Louisiana. So I think first and foremost, just having this stability, getting rid of this anxiety about what's going to happen to our program every 2 years is the biggest thing for Texans and the biggest thing we hear day in, day out, and what Texans and former Texans who want to move back to the state are most excited about.
And back to the specifics of the Texas incentives, there have been some concerns, you know, $2.5 billion over 10 years, it's a lot. And some people have said, well, maybe this money could be spent on other things like safety or public schools for one. Right. What might you say to that?
I think this program has such a strong ROI component because whenever a film production comes to town, they are pouring millions of dollars a day into a single local economy. Think Strawn, Texas, for example, with a population of 540 people. They were the host city for an episode of Lawman Bass Reeves. And they poured $1.4 million on average a day into that local economy. You're hiring local police officers, local medics,
electricians, carpenters,
you know, hiring restaurants for the day, essentially just pouring so much money. And when you look at the return on investment, for every dollar in, it's $4 out in economic activity. So when there are some opponents saying, oh, this will raise my property taxes, or this is using taxpayer dollar to fund movies, this is really a true investment for the state of Texas because of the long-term return on investment.
And I think it's one of the only industries that directly puts cash into the pockets of a vast variety of different Texans. So it really is so incredibly beneficial, and it can touch just about anybody. I think it's really important to note when we talk about, oh, this is $2.5 billion that the state is giving out over 10 years. If we got $250 million a year, this would still only really put Texas at number 7 of the top 7 programs. It wouldn't be above that. Other states, our biggest competitors, Georgia is giving out $900 million a year. Illinois is giving out $700 million. New York, $700 million. California is creating a bill to get it to $700 million. Right now it's at $400 million. When you look at the per capita of Texas as well, if we actually wanted to be the most competitive, we would look at giving $700 million a year. But this is also Texas, and we're not trying to use taxpayers' dollars willy-nilly. And so I think $250 million, and compared to what other states and what other countries are doing, is a really good fit for Texas and is not an overspend, but is also going to get us right there at that level of competition to enable Texans to stay in Texas, which is our #1 goal.
Another concern about this bill is that it would give the governor's office total discretion over which projects receive the funding, which is not something new here in Texas. But this bill states that any film project must portray Texas and Texans in a positive fashion and also incentivizes films that showcase quote-unquote family values. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has said as much on X. Even some supporters have expressed some concerns over that subjective language. What does that mean, and how do y'all define those things?
It's really interesting people point this out, but the actual language is a film or a film project or moving image project must not show Texas in a negative light. If you look at the codes that were created and passed into law in every other state that has a program, they have the exact same language. It's just not talked about as much in other states. So the governor's office has always had control of this. They've always had this exact same language. The only thing that's changed is that there is now being an added uplift opportunity. And for us, we're really excited about that, because what's wrong with just adding uplift? What's wrong with giving out more to different types of projects? And then speaking to the faith-based, this will really help faith-based projects because they're normally on the lower end of the budget scale. So they might not hit that $1.5 million buy-in. This, to get the 25%, this would enable those projects which have kept people employed. The Chosen has kept people employed over our sort of drought period for the past 5 years. This would help them keep going. And so we're really just a proponent for all the uplifts. We would love even more uplifts if it were up to us.
And if this bill passes in the House, where do you see and what do you hope for the Texas film and TV industry 10 years from now?
Yeah, I think this bill is just the start. Essentially, our ultimate goal with Media for Texas is to help shepherd the state into its own robust industry, something independent from other markets across the United States. Our ultimate goal is to see Texas become a place where products can be financed, they can be developed, distributed, made, all here within our borders, and then hopefully just be a well-oiled machine to help export our culture and our values across the globe.
Sort of what I said earlier, we really envision that the future of film is Texas. I love saying that when people ask me, what do we think is going to happen for the film industry in Texas? But it's actually about the film industry for our country. I think Texas is going to become the leader in the #1 exporter of moving image content out of the United States. We're going to become that in the next 10 years. I think when you're walking around, you feel that energy here in Texas. I think the industry is ready for a change as well. Or just, some fresh ideas, some fresh ways of doing things. Let's look into how we can finance things differently. Let's look into distribution. We need to sort of change things up, and I think Texas is going to be the answer to a lot of those questions. So.
Well, this is definitely something we'll be watching as the session unfolds.
Yeah.
Chase and Grant with Media for Texas, thank you so much for your clarification and being with us today.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave us a comment below to let us know your thoughts on this video. And don't forget, you can watch full episodes of Austin Insight for free in the PBS app.